we are going to try to understand the fundamental difference between human beings and other animals. Now, the reason why I say other animals is because a human being is an animal, but a human being is a rational animal. This brings up the topic, the issue of whether the other animals can think. Because if other animals can think, like if there's a monkey out there that does human thinking, or there's a turtle that does human thinking, then we have to start treating that animal differently. Because if they can think like a human being, then they deserve to be treated like a human being. They need to have the moral accountability of a human being. The one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to fall into anthropomorphism. Now, anthropomorphism is a tendency to give human characteristics to things that are not human. I mean, you see this a lot in movies and in books where some deer is talking or some lion is talking. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. The problem is that if we're doing something serious like biology or philosophy or any other science, if we start to anthropomorphize and give human characteristics to things that don't have human characteristics, then we are going to be doing bad science. The first thing we're going to talk about here is sensorial knowledge. Okay, so human beings have sense perception. In other words, we see things, we hear things, we smell things. Sensorial knowledge is awareness of particulars by way of images. We gain knowledge by seeing things. We see a table, and what happens is when you see a table, you form an image in your mind. You can turn your head and you could picture the table that you just saw. How do you do this? By way of an image. We do this for all of our senses. So this sensorial knowledge is this awareness of these particular things, individually existing things. So sensorial knowledge is a major thing because animals appear to do this as well. I'm not talking about human beings, because human beings are an animal, but we're a rational animal. But the other animals, the lesser animals, also appear to do this. Along with sensorial knowledge is memory. Memory is like a movie. It's like a bunch of images that you have in your mind and they are just played back. Let's pretend that you went on a hiking trip. Okay, so you got your backpack ready. And so you have an image of your backpack. And then you started walking. And you have an image of a particular point where you were walking, you were hiking. And then you were at a different spot. And you have a particular image of you being in that other spot. And then finally you start to trek up the mountain. And so you have a particular image of you going up the mountain. And so you have several of these, not just the ones I put right here on this slide. You have hundreds of these, maybe thousands of these in your mind. When you think about that trip that you took, you're just playing the movie back. You are playing all those images back in your mind. Intellectual knowledge is general ideas abstracted from sensorial knowledge. This, it appears, only human beings have. Now, when we say general ideas, we are talking about concepts. Concepts are an abstracted general idea that applies to many particulars. These are particular tables. You've seen a lot of tables. You know what a table is. When I say you know what a table is, I am already assuming that you have an idea of what a table is. When you were a little child, 3, 4, 5 years old, you didn't know what a table was. You just pointed at something. Let's say you saw this table right here on the left. Maybe this was the table in your house. You saw this table, you didn't know what it was, but you saw people eating on it. When you saw people around this thing that you didn't know yet, you used to hear the word table. That's the word you heard. Or if English isn't the first language that you learned whatever word that they had for table. After seeing many of these things, and after this happened several times, then the magic happened, where you formed the idea of a table, where you understood what a table is. In other words, when you were viewing these tables for the first time, that was sensorial knowledge, awareness of particulars by way of images. So when you saw a table for the first time, second time, third time, still today, you form an image in your mind. Now, after you do this several times, hundreds of times, and you start to realize the function of these tables, you form an idea. Now, the idea you can't see. You can't pop it up in your head like you do with the image of the table, because the idea, according to some great philosophers like Aristotle and Socrates, the idea is immaterial. That's why if you picture, like right now, you're sitting there and you may be thinking like, oh, this picture I have in my mind, this little picture I have in my mind, that's the idea. No, it's not. You can't see the idea. If you pop up right now a brown table in your mind, or a blue, think of a blue table. And if you have a blue table floating around in your mind somewhere, that's not the concept. That's an image. That's an image based on the concept. A concept is that by which we know particular things. This idea in your mind of a table is abstract. You abstracted this idea from particular physical things. So because you have the idea of a table, you take that everywhere. That allows you, when you go somewhere and you see a table, but you've never seen this table before in your life, you're able to spot it and you say, oh, there's a table right there. Why? Because you have the abstract idea of a table in your mind. It's unlimited. This is why Aristotle says that it is immaterial, because it's unlimited. You could see 1,000,000 tables and your idea of a table will never run out. You will always be able to spot it if it's a table. So getting back to our distinction between human beings and other animals, it appears, based on what we've seen at this point, other animals do not have intellectual knowledge. Other animals like gorillas, dolphins, or whatever, they only have sensorial knowledge. Intellectual knowledge allows human beings to do many things that we don't see in other animals. Now, here are some of the things that we do not see in other animals. We do not see, number one, we don't see the ability to do science. You have to question things in order to have a science. And we don't see this with any other animals but human beings. Here's the last one. Here's the most important one right here. We don't see a language to translate with other animals. If we don't see a language, we cannot spot whether the animal has intellectual knowledge. So even if some other animal, a monkey, a dolphin, whatever, has intellectual knowledge, we wouldn't know it because they don't have a language. There's no language to translate. I'm going to show you what it takes to translate a language. Now look at this word right here on the left, mensa. That's a Latin word for table. And look at this word on the right. That's table. That's the English word. So you have two words right here from different languages. Let's say somebody only knows English. Okay, for English speakers, that's what you started with. You definitely didn't start with Latin, because Latin's an old language. A word is a sign of a concept. So the word table for English speakers, it's a symbol. See, look at those symbols right there. You see the T and the A and the B and the L and the E? These are all symbols. And when you put those symbols together to form that word table, it is a sign of the concept. How would you learn the word table in Latin? Here's how you learn it. You have an idea of what a table is. So when you look at a book or you're talking to somebody and they say this word mensa, and then you notice that they're pointing at a table, or that you're looking in a book and there's a picture of a table, you start to realize your concept starts to go into action here. And you start to realize, oh, this word mensa represents a table. In other words, your concept of a table is the whole reason why you can even translate from English into Latin. And this is what human beings do that other animals don't seem to do.